like the thing that's happened in music is we've seen a influx of people taking a stand and becoming independent on the recorded music side, right? And so a lot of these artists that you see that they're saying like, I'm independent, I don't want to sign a label deal, blah blah blah. Yes, they are independent on their maybe on their recorded music, but please believe that the new record label is just like, the Live Nations and the AEGs of the world, and like they're still in these touring deals, and they're not really independent when it comes to their live operation. And again, there's nothing. I'm not downplaying. I'm not talking bad about the AEGs and Live Nations of the world by any means. But I think that true independence is being independent in every single aspect.
Especially if that's where most of the money's coming from. Like they're not making as much money from the recording. They're making it from when you tour, right? So like, thinking of the long-term play where it's like, you know what, I could take this upfront money now, or long-term I can get the data and now I know my fan base going 10, 15, maybe 20 years where I can still perform in these cities.
Absolutely.
The value is in it. I don't even want to brush over this because I don't think people fully understand how valuable data is. Facebook just had the biggest settlement or fine in like the history of everything, and they'll take that because everybody knows what happened. They took your information, but that's how valuable your information is, right? So it's a reason why when you sign up to all of these things, they ask for your date of birth, they ask where you live. This is like solid gold, right? Because now they can market to you forever. Like, they can market to you forever. They know your likes. Now they can figure out what kind of music you listen to, what kind of clothes you wear. Every single thing and it's like a lifetime, as opposed to you go into a store and you buy candy, right? Now, the old way of doing business is to say, okay, you brought that candy. I need you to come into the store every week, every day for me to make money off of you, right? The new way is to say, okay, you brought that candy. But when you brought the candy, I made you fill out a form. So now I'm text messaging you pictures of chocolate bars throughout the day.
Soliciting you.
And you know what? Another point to make, as if any marketers are listening to this, right? Not just consumers, but it's like, because data is so valuable, you need to treat it as such. You need to treat it as a precious thing, and you can't overextend, your welcome and your ability to market to people, right? Just because you have all this data, for instance, SMS with us is huge, right? Like being able to text our fan base and let them know when tickets are on sale, that's a huge thing. But we don't send many text messages because it's intrusive. You know what I mean? And if you send a text message to people, too frequently, they will quickly unsubscribe from that, right? And the data that is so valuable and important will actually become meaningless if you abuse it. So, this is the thing that people need to understand. Like, while data is valuable, it's very important not to abuse that data.
Yeah, and you don't have to guess, because like I said, now you can reach out to people, and as opposed to, they might not ever come back to your candy store, but that doesn't mean that they can't buy candy, right? They don't have to physically be there. Now they can order it over the mail, or they can order it online. They can do a lot of different things. So this is why data is so important. And if you think about it, it's something that you said to us off camera that made a lot of sense. Like, even in iTunes, like you might stream 1 billion records. You don't know who's not one of those persons that actually brought it. Right? Like, think about that. Like Drake, probably, I think he broke the streaming record. How many records did he stream?
He did 1 billion in the first week.
How many of those people does he actually have relationships with?
Right.
Yeah.
Right? That's 1 billion. Like, that's crazy, right?
J. Cole said they're using computers, right?
Faking
these streams.
Yeah.
Well, that's a different conversation. But so it's like, I would rather actually have 1 million people or 100,000 people's information,
absolutely,
than 100 million people that I don't know.
It's the same thing, right? With us, right? Like, I'm not gonna share our like how many emails and phone numbers we have, right?
Yeah.
But I will say, it's multiple times how many followers we have on Instagram.
That means more.
Way more. Way more. We like. This is why, when, like I said, we're kind of like sleeping giants, right? Because like we may have 50-something thousand followers on the R&B only Instagram page, but boy, when you look at that email and phone number list, you'd be surprised. And that's essentially how we built our consumer, our relationship, and that's how we'll continue to grow, is by directly having a relationship versus having a relationship.
That's I think you coined the term "own your audience."
Yeah, own your audience.
It was like you have that direct line of communication with the people who are coming.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, all right. And then as far as the monetary side, you guys put up all the financial risk. So you can talk about that. You can talk about that off camera too. That's a little different than the regular touring model.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, and it's a lot of risk, right? So like, think about certain venues that we play in, they may cost 10, 20, 30 grand to rent these venues, right? So imagine if you're doing a tour, right? Like that's a lot of upfront capital. And with a lot of these companies that own the rooms, you don't have to put the whole money up front, but sometimes it's half, or sometimes it's a quarter. And so when you're talking about 30 shows, average of $20,000 to $30,000 rentals, you know what I mean? Like this can get to be a lot of upfront capital that's going out. And you have to plan these things way in advance, right? Sometimes 6 months, sometimes 18 months, depending on how big the show is and how the availability looks for something in a marketplace. Because I'm not just competing with, people in like the R&B space, right? These are the venues that everybody tours in, right? So I'm competing with the rock acts that want to come and book shows there. I'm competing with the rap acts, the hip hop acts, the R&B acts, anybody that's in the live space. That's who I'm competing with in terms of like holds on venues. So, you have to. It's a capital upfront business that you don't really see the money until it comes back. Because then here's another thing that happens: a lot of people wait last minute to buy a ticket to a show. Like think about the last time you all might have went to something, right? You might have said, "Oh, this thing is happening this weekend, so I'm gonna get a ticket this weekend."
I mean, here in New York, it's like these guys they know. Like when I get tickets, I'm like the first guy in line because I know like things are gonna sell out fast. Like, and then it's but I can't do it.
That's interesting. So as far as to say, okay, you're a promoter, right? You're promoting your own events, but you're a promoter.
I wouldn't say we're a promoter, but so I mean that's another thing, right? Like in terms of the vertical integration, it's like we are the people that are actually like producing the event. We're the talent for the event. Mm-hmm. We also market the show. So that's an aspect, you know what I mean?
And you control tickets.
And we control it. Yeah.
But what I was going with that as far as marketing, right? Yep. So promoting, marketing, however you want to phrase it, you put it out there for the public, right? Mm-hmm. What's the ratio that you look for? Okay, the first week I need to have 50% of the tickets sold.
That's a great question.
Going into it, I need to. Like when do you start to like this is looking a little shaky? Like,
we might have to cancel this show.
I mean, there's been a few shows canceled, man. Shout out to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
we love everybody in South Carolina.
Yeah, but y'all just gotta buy tickets, man. So essentially, the way I can phrase it, because every place is different, right? Some places you go to, you might sell, in the first day when it goes on sale, which is the most important day. It might sell like, you might sell 10% of the venue. You might sell 5% of the venue, but that show actually may be a sellout by the time doors open. You just, it just depends. But I think if you do sell on an on sale, the term is on sale, right? Like you have the way this works is you have an announce and you have an on sale. So typically we announce shows on a Monday and then we actually go on sale on a Friday. So it gives people that window to sort of like register for a pre-sale, and you incentivize people to buy tickets early. So when a ticket goes on sale, that's typically the cheapest price that ticket will be, and you're rewarding people for committing to the show early. And so the amount that I feel like, any event producer would want to be at, maybe you're looking at, if you're at like 50%, that's great. You know what I mean? I feel like that's when we do numbers like that, we know that
50% at what date? At
like on the on sale, like the first 48 hours. That's kind of how you know, like this show's on pace to sell out. You know what I mean? But yeah, then if you have a bad on sale, and we've had plenty of those before we like got good at marketing, you might be at like 10%, 5%. And then you're like, wow, it's going to be an uphill battle to sell the rest of these tickets.
2016, right? Mm-hmm. R&B only. That's when it launches, right?
Yeah, that's when.
How many shows, how many venues were you guys looking at in that first year?
In that year, we did. I think we did 30 something, maybe 35, and then in 2000. Maybe we did 2016 we probably did 20, and and then the next year we probably did in the 30s, and then last year 2018 we did 67.
67, right?
Yeah. I think,
so can we talk? All right. So we talked about as far as you guys, you put up the money yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously it's more of a risk, but you get more reward also, right?
Definitely.
So as far as the revenue, what does your revenue look like different from others? Like how, like you get different parts that a regular person that's doing an event wouldn't get by not putting up?
Yeah, I mean, so I got to shout out Live Nation. They're huge. They're not investors in our company, but we work with them a lot, and we have a very unique and incredible relationship with them. And so, yeah, we there's sometimes where we participate in bar revenue from certain venues, right? There's certain times where, and that's just not just Live Nation, but that's just across the board. Some venues that we're doing shows in. Sometimes we don't, right? Sometimes a venue might be so in demand that they know that they can sort of like offer this kind of deal and like not give you anything from the bar. Some venues we participate in parking, concessions, which is food and beverage sales, as well as tickets, right? Like
that's something that artists don't get. Right?
Most of the time,
they're not gonna get anything from parking. Or...
No. I mean, you, the ones that do are probably like, they're so big, like the Taylor Swifts of the world, maybe the Beyoncés of the world. Yeah, because it's something that a lot of artists. Here's the thing: there are not many artists that are producing their own shows. There are not many artists that are putting up the capital to do a show. They're just getting a guarantee. You know what I mean? Okay. So like their agents are not even asking for some of these things.
I remember a few years ago, I think Beyonce did a deal with Pepsi, and they sponsored the entire tour. I think it was a Beyonce show.
Beyonce album? Okay.
Yeah, the Beyonce album. Okay. Yeah, when she was starting to do the baseball stadiums.
Yeah.
I think she had just did the Super Bowl. They sponsored that with her and Bruno Mars, and then they did the tour. So like that's an example of where
sponsorship.
They're sponsoring the entire tour. So maybe she's like, I went to a few other shows and it was like they forget about those costs. Like when you buy food at the venue, when you pay $40 to park at the venue, all these things, including merch at the venue.
And a lot of times when artists do a merch deal, and they're buying merch at a venue, typically the venue's taking some of that percentage, right? Usually it's anywhere between like 30 and 10%. That the venue's getting just to allow you to sell merch in there, which is another important reason why, owning the data is important, right? Because if you have a store that you can sell online, and these people have came to your show, but you had the data to talk to them and say, hey, if you didn't get merch at the show, you can get it online on my online store, and you're not having to pay a venue a certain cut of that money.
Brian Leslie has something. You familiar with what he's doing?
Of course. Yeah. With what's the phone app?
He actually reached out to me. We had communicated in DM. Shout out to him. But yeah, he has
Superphone, right?
Yeah, he has something similar to that. So do you think that this is where we're headed as far as like everybody's on the wave of owning your masters and being independent? That's pretty much established now. Even though a lot of people still don't own their masters, but at least that's kind of the narrative is out there, right? But now a lot of people are talking about what you're talking about, owning your information, owning your data. You think that's like the next wave?
I hope it is, and I'm trying to be a person that champions that, right? And that like helps people do that. I mean, one thing that I want to start doing is producing tours for other artists, but using this model that we have, right? So like maybe it's we come in with, or maybe it's not even a tour, right? Maybe it's just a festival or one show that we help an artist do, and so that they can see like, hey, instead of letting, some other person do it, like we can share the data, you know what I mean? Like, and you can actually own the data that, the 5,000 tickets you sell, it would be nice to like talk to those people again. You know what I mean? And like, you kind of have to do it in small steps to show people. Cause like a lot of people don't realize the importance of it right now. But here's another thing that it takes. The reason why we've seen this movement towards independence in music and recorded music is because the cost of creating the music has gone down so significantly, right? It still costs a lot of money to produce a show for 5,000 people or 2,000 people or 1,000 people, right? There's a lot of upfront costs that you have to put out. And that's the thing. Like, you can make a song for next to nothing right now. You can't produce a tour, let alone one event, for next to nothing, right? And so this is all a question of risk, right? Like, I was just really willing to risk all of my personal capital because what I knew that the idea I had was going to work out, and I was so I just believed in the idea so much, and I was so passionate about this thing. But you know, a lot of people are not willing to bet on themselves when it comes to money, and that's what's gonna, you know.
And the approach you took, you just kept flipping, right? Like from the first part, you just flip the profit, put it back in, put the profit back in, then you just get
absolutely. I mean, to this day, I still don't pay myself, you know, a salary. I pay my staff, you know, well before I take any money, and that's just you know, I invest into office space, I invest into production, I invest into people, you know, I invest into like talent, you know what I mean? And when I say talent, I don't mean just artists, right? I mean like employees and people who are going to help the operation grow. Because me taking money out and, you know, buying myself something nice, you know, I look at money as like a tool, right? Like money they're like workers. Every dollar is like a little small worker that can build and turn into more dollars and turn into more opportunities. But you have to put those dollars to work. If you just are buying something like, you know, because you want to reward yourself, that doesn't necessarily, that value is just gone.
It's a missed opportunity. Yeah. It's all about mindset. Once you start to look at money like that, you will never really want to buy nothing.
No,
like it's like once you really start to look at it like that, when you start to understand it like that, right? Because it's like, okay, I could buy this $30,000 Rolex, but that $30,000 Rolex is going to cost me $120,000. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because ultimately that $30,000 could have got flipped 4 times.
Absolutely.
In 2 years or 1 year. So then you gotta be careful, because like I said, now you can get to a point where you don't never want to spend money, because it's like I'm putting everything back in. But I wanted to ask you one question also. Did you ever get bank financing?
So I've always taken out like loans and stuff, right? So like
bank loans.
Yeah. Well, not from traditional banks, but like more like startup company banks and stuff like that. And yeah, even now we have, you know, various loans and stuff. And we do have a deal with Live Nation that is not, it's financing, but it's just essentially a loan. It's like,
let me ask you a question, because this is something that we hadn't covered. I just thought about it. But at what point were you able to get a bank loan or a line of credit? This is something that entrepreneurs, it all comes down to funding. One of the reasons why a lot of businesses don't get off the ground, especially in our communities, that they don't have money. They can't fund probably. We're going to talk about funding in the next episode, the next segment, but I want to talk about that right now. When were you able to secure a relationship with a bank to even get a loan? Whatever, the first loan.
So, you know, it wasn't banks first. I was using my American Express card like a bank.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, so that is how, you know, I was building my credit on there, and I was just like, you know, using that 45-day window to like flip and make money. You know what I mean? So like once I started getting to a point where I needed like serious capital, I was just like, okay, we got to use this American Express, and like hopefully we have another event that happens, and then this money from this event will pay this American Express bill, and then to move forward and keep putting holds on venues, like, and that's it. And then the American Express, me building the credit on there, was able to get me like other credit cards and that type of thing. So the way that I funded the business initially was capital from credit cards and like paying those back as fast as I could, and then just the money that was being generated from the actual shows.
Yeah, you went from, I think, 500,000 in 2016 to 1.2 million in 2017, and then to 2.1 million in 2018.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's just
in revenues,
growth.
right?
Revenues.
Yeah.
But that was one of your models. It was like profit. Anything we get, right? We're reinvesting profit into product.
Yep.
And like that's a model that is like, people should follow that, man.
Yeah, I think so. I think that you know, especially when something's working, I always tell my team, like, if something's working, let's pour the gasoline on it. You know what I mean? Like, let's make that little spark into a wildfire.
All money in, man.
Yeah, for sure.